How's your day been?
Yeah, good. I think we could be live now. Okay. So, welcome everyone. I'm Jane Wells, and I am the founder and executive director of Three Generations. We are a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, and I'm here today to talk to filmmaker Ruben Hamlin about our upcoming video contest. Hi, Ruben. Welcome to the live stream, and thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yeah.
First, I just wanted to say a word about the contest. It's the first one that we've had, and it is the culmination of our commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the liberation of the Nazi concentration camps in 1945. My father, Sidney Bernstein, was there filming and produced the seminal film German Concentration Camps Factual Survey, which documents the atrocities that occurred in the Nazi camps. Selections of footage from his film have been housed at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum since it opened. His film still serves as the foundational story of Three Generations and as irrefutable evidence of what happened in the camps. You can rent it directly from our website. At Three Generations, we continue to document atrocity to create evidence for all mankind. Last year, like many other organizations, we were shocked to learn that apparently 63% of millennials and Generation Z didn't know about the Holocaust at all. Further, a quarter said they thought the Holocaust was a myth, and a stunning 20% of youth in New York State thought that the Jews were responsible for the Holocaust. And from this, the idea of our video contest came about. But I want to be clear, this is not a contest about the Holocaust per se. And so I thought maybe, Ruben, you could explain a little bit about what the subject of the contest really is.
Yeah, sure. So the contest is about ask the question, why document atrocity? And this is a sort of a broad understanding of atrocity. It could refer to the atrocities that occurred within the Nazi concentration camps, but it could be an atrocity currently occurring today. So we've had entries which have dealt with current and historic atrocities from all different parts of the world. And this is our sort of question to you is why has it been important that documentation of these atrocities exists today or is currently being collected? We're thinking there are sort of two ways of approaching this. Like either we would like you to educate about past or current atrocities, or your video could just be sort of a more essayistic and consider the importance of why recording atrocity. Or it could consider the importance of recording atrocity. So these sort of questions could be: what does it mean to give testimony? What does it mean to bear witness? How do we learn from testimony, and how do we ensure those lessons are never forgotten? What is the significance of representing atrocity? What is the role of video and photographic testimony? Can art be considered testimony? And what is the value of current and or historic testimony today? So there are sort of like two prongs you can take here: either sort of documentary on atrocities, historic or current, or a sort of more contemplative theorizing of the importance of recording atrocity and testimony. The competition is really open, so you can approach it in whatever way you like in terms of medium. You could do a documentary. You could, now with the pandemic, it's quite hard to go out and film everywhere, but you could do an interview with a relative who's experienced something like this, or was adjacent to something that was occurring in through history. So there are sort of possibilities despite the sort of limitations of the pandemic. You could do a fiction film, like a short story or parable about the importance of testimony. You could do animation. Or an essay film, where you consider one of these questions a monologue to camera. You could even write a poem and just deliver that, in the comfort of your bedroom. So there are loads of ways you can do this. The only thing we ask is that the videos remain under 4 minutes, which seems short, but there's so much you can actually say in such a short amount of time. Just keep a narrow focus, and there's, you can really fill out the space with, very, very powerful concepts and images. We've seen this so far with our submissions that we've already sort of collected.
Can I just jump in there to say that as one of the judges, I'd be really excited to see any entries that, obviously documentary is very close to my heart, but any art form or any artistic reflection on this subject would be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would go like further to say, look, the pandemic does seem like this massive obstacle, but it doesn't have to be. I'm a filmmaker, as James said, and I've actually been working on a documentary, a feature-length documentary since March. And everything we've collected, everything we've gathered, I've done from this laptop sitting at this desk or somewhere else. You know, we haven't gone out and shot, but we're recording it all remotely. So it is possible. You just have to sort of, you know, adapt to these limitations and actually sort of use them more as a prompt rather than as, you know, treat them as an obstacle. So, you know, if you're doing a fiction film, maybe it's like hard to go out and cast things, do a proper shoot. But like if you live with roommates, you know, you can do a fiction with like sort of, you know, your 3 roommates or your brother and your sister, like get your parents involved. You know, there are so many ways you can do it. Like we're really sort of valuing the sort of creativity and the message behind it and not the sort of production value. So just, you know, use what you have around you, be resourceful, and you can make something brilliant. The other options you could do is you could get copyright-free footage from online. Like we're not allowing you to use any copyrighted footage because of the legal complications that come with that. But there's like massive resources of copyright-free footage online. So you could do a montage which sort of considers some of these questions through that, or, you know, take sort of documentation from historic atrocities and, you know, make a film which with VO, without VO, you know, illustrates something which you might not think about, put these images together in a way that we haven't considered, or just remind people of the importance of witnessing these images. So there are different ways you can do it. You could get really creative and just embrace sort of technology with this as well. You could, for example, here's an idea, ask this question to your friends on a group chat. Message why document atrocity, screen record it, and then you can do a sort of edit together the best responses and have a like sort of text conversation as your 4-minute video. There are so many ways you can do this. So just like we really, really, really value your creativity. We understand the limitations of the time, and we will sort of reward people who adapt and sort of succeed within these confines. So yeah, just like really, yeah, we understand the difficulties basically. Is what I mean to say.
And we do have a little bit of available footage from German concentration camps. I think that the trailer is available to download from our website, from our Vimeo channel, I believe. And that's certainly free to use in this context as well. I do like the idea of having a sort of a Zoom chat with people's friends and talking about atrocities specifically. I mean, I think most of us have seen some pretty atrocious things in the news in the last week or so, very well documented by citizen journalists, citizen witnesses, and participants. Have we sort of, are we embracing that as a possible subject too?
I mean, yeah, it's, of course, there's so much to it in these times. There's a real sort of like call to respond to these times. There's so much sort of available that you can consider. There's so much which is really sort of like pressing to consider in response to the events at sort of Capitol Hill last week. All the effects of the pandemic on different communities. You know, like there are the attention is being taken away from sort of atrocities that are occurring around the world right now because of the pandemic. So that it's more and more, it's increasingly sort of important to be drawing attention to sort of the like horrors which are basically being neglected at this point. Capitol Hill is, you know, maybe wouldn't be sort of considered an atrocity in the most like the broadly used sense, but to challenge democracy, to attempt to undermine the democratic sort of constitution of this country. I am in the US, even though my accent is English. Is atrocious. It's undeniably atrocious. So, without the sort of documentation of that, would we learn lessons from what occurred there? If it was just sort of like a secondhand information with the level of distrust that exists in this society, without the images, what would change with the way that people respond to these events? So these are sort of questions you can consider in relation to the events of last week. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, one thing that I wanted to say about that is that, you know, when my father was responsible for the British and for the Americans at the liberation of these camps, of documenting what they saw then. He thought about it very carefully and very deeply, and did discuss this with Alfred Hitchcock and others, was how could you prove that what you saw had really happened? And there was already the sort of sense of doubt about what it was to witness something, that they anticipated that, and they anticipated Holocaust denial. So there was a sort of real responsibility as cameramen to show it and craft what they filmed in ways that proved what happened. And, you know, one example of that is, you know, a panning shot without edits in it, having Germans who had been responsible for some of the atrocities be there as witnesses to what they found. So this whole question of how you prove the truth and what it means to bear witness is something that has really been with us since the invention of, you know, of film and cameras, and somehow seems as relevant today as it was 75 or 80 years ago. And, you know, that's something that's very exciting to us at Three Generations, and something that we want to have young people talk about as we share the message forward. Yeah.
No, certainly. And particularly with the sort of the proliferation of like synthetic media techniques, and I mean, obviously Photoshop has existed for a long time. I mean, there are sort of precedents all the way back into sort of like Soviet Russia of photo manipulation for like political purposes. But obviously the current proliferation raises new questions about photographic and video testimony. So if you want to sort of like dive into that area, then, you know, that's a really fascinating topic, and we'd love to hear from you.
Great. So let's just go over some of the basics here. Prizes, deadline, judges.
Yeah, so I think I'll start with anyone over 30. Sorry, you're excluded from this. The age range is 16 to 30. We was at 18, so if you have any confusion about that, you've seen it at 18. We have lowered it to 16 to sort of allow for 17 and 18-year-olds, 16-year-olds, because, you know, your voices matter, and we really think that you could approach this material in a very like mature and insightful way. So we want to hear from you as well. There is a limitation in that you have to be from North America, and we have had some submissions from outside North America. We're sorry about that if we have to disqualify you. This is only sort of North American countries and citizens are allowed to, residents are allowed to submit to this. The good news is it's free to enter, which is fantastic. And there are cash prizes, and three cash prizes of $1,000 US, which is, you know, not bad. So if you enter, you're in with a good chance of winning one of these. There's three categories. One is for the best short film under 4 minutes. One is the best micro short film, which is under 60 seconds. And then I think there's an audience choice award. So yeah, you've got 3 attempts at that 1,000. So yeah, please get your films in. On top of that, there'll be sort of all the selected films at the end will be submitted to film festivals across the country by our partner, Menemsha Films. They're a distribution company. So like, even if you don't get the top prizes, we've got, you know, there's still sort of big perks of entering, and you could be selected for this, like, this other tier. We want you to submit via Film Freeway, which is, I'm sure so many of you will know, is a sort of a film submission platform. It's largely for festivals. It's also for contests. If you haven't used it before, the interface is like very, very sort of, you know, it's very user friendly. It's very sort of intuitive. So please create an account, upload your film, and then submit to our page through there. You can find our Film Freeway page on the Three Generations website, or you could email me. Can be contacted at gccfs@threegenerations.org. That's gccfs@threegenerations.org. So if you have any other questions as well, just shoot me an email there. Our judges, our incredible panel, is led by the acclaimed artist Marilyn Minter. She will be the jury president. The other judges include producer Dorothy Berwin, filmmaker Nikki Lelm, author Lily Hamlin, Neil Friedman, who's from our partner Menemsha Films, and Clara Citron, who's a student. So really incredible sort of like lineup there. Chance to get your film seen by some of these incredible minds and sort of cultural contributors. So yeah, we're really proud to have them and grateful for their involvement in this contest. The deadline is 2 weeks away as of tomorrow, so you don't have loads of time, but considering you can make one of these films in a day, half a day, that actually gives you a lot of time to sort of to tackle this. You might be sitting at home twiddling your thumbs, not really knowing what to do because the pandemic's limited sort of the rest of your life. Well, use that sort of spare time to make a film that will teach someone a lesson about the importance of recording atrocity. So yeah, don't be held back.
Yeah. Instead of partying with your friends, make an atrocity film.
Exactly.
What could be better than that? And maybe win a prize. And maybe make some, affect some change, because let's face it, those of us who love documentary do it because we really think it can make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see if we have any questions that we haven't answered. If there are questions we haven't answered, you can always email, DM us. And we really look forward to receiving lots of incredibly inventive and exciting and interesting entries. And I just, on behalf of 3 Generations, I want to thank Ruben for taking the time to help explain this and represent youth. And yeah, thank you. And I look forward to seeing all the entries.
Yeah.
Ruben, any last words of encouragement and wisdom?
Me too. The biggest motivation for me is an approaching deadline. So, I take advantage of that. If I don't have a deadline in front of me, then I won't get it done. So you have 2 weeks. Use that deadline as a big, kick to get into action and get this film made, because there are so many benefits of submitting to this contest, and we're really, really excited to see all of your work.
Yeah. There is one last question that we didn't answer. Will you ever have a contest for non-North American filmmakers? And the answer to that is absolutely 100%. That will be one of my personal goals for 2021 and in 2022 to make that happen. I just want to say it was really just a rights and distribution question. I think that actually, if somebody does want to enter from not North America, if they don't use any of the footage from German concentration camps factual survey, I think that we could probably certainly make an exception for that. And somebody said, is there any qualitative criteria? I'm going to punt that back to you, Ruben.
We're judging our submissions on their creativity and the way that they approach these questions, because it's such a sort of like broad topic, and we're accepting sort of approaches which are more sort of like documentation, and others which are more sort of theoretical, like essayistic sort of approaches to the topic, why document atrocity. There isn't sort of specific criteria, but we want creativity. We want creativity within the limitations of the pandemic, and we want originality. We want approaches we haven't seen before. If we don't want just like a rehash of a very typical style. If you really have a new idea and you have a new way of approaching this material, then it's gonna excite and surprise us, and that's what we want. So that would be the qualitative criteria.
Mm-hmm. And I should obviously say it has to be respectful of all individuals and no ad hominem remarks, etc. Just courtesy. Well, I think we've covered the basics here. So I want to thank everybody, the massive audience who did listen, and those who will continue to tune in later. Thanks for coming, and thank you, Ruben. And as I said, get creative and be a force for change in the world. That's what we all wish for. Change for good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.